Okay, ladies and gentlemen, you are welcome. So in this video, we are going to look at acrosome reaction. Introduction to the acrosome reaction. This is a structure of sperm, and as we can see that the sperm is made up of different component. We have acrosome, we have nucleus, we have centriole, mitochondria, and axial. And clearly we can see that the acrosome is located at the tip of the sperm head, and it plays a crucial role in fertilization. So this acrosome is the major part of the sperm cells that is important in the fertilization of the egg. So the acrosome reaction is a common process observed in many animals during fertilization. And this acrosomes reaction, it involves a series of steps that enable the sperm to penetrate the egg's protective layers. So acrosome reaction is involve a series of steps where the egg cells recognize the sperm cell, bind to it, and then the sperm cell penetrate the egg layer to release the nucleus for the fertilization to take place. So now, initiation of the acrosome reaction, there is a receptor on the sperm plasma membrane. And this receptor contact the egg's jelly coat or vitelline layer. So that is what you call an egg jelly coat or a vitelline layer. So these receptors contact the vitelline layer or the jelly coat, and this receptor jelly coat interaction, it triggers the dissolution of the acrosome membrane. So the membrane of the chromosomes will open up to release enzymes, and these enzymes will help to digest the egg's outer layers, facilitating sperm entry. So after the dissolution, that is the open of the acrosome membrane, two important enzymes are very important, which help to digest the egg outer layers. And these enzymes are hyaluronidase and proteases, because the membrane or the egg's outer layers, especially the zona pellucida, it highly rich in hyaluronic acid and protein. So it is the work of the hyaluronidase to break down the hyaluronic acids on the outer layers of the egg cell, which facilitates the sperm entry. And as we can see, this is what actually happened. These are the different types of sperm. Sorry, these are the different sperms here that we have. As you can see, this is the first time this is the sperm. And of course, there are protein receptors on the sperm, and these protein receptors bind to as you can see, the jelly egg. And after that happened, look at it here, then the egg cells now the acrosome of the sperm cell will now open up to begin to release the enzyme. And these enzymes, hyaluronidase and proteases, open up or digest the egg's outer layer, and then the sperm will now release its nucleus for the fertilization to take place. So that is the first step. The first step of acrosome reaction, the protein receptors on the sperm bind to the egg's jelly layer, and then as a result of this interaction, it will now triggers the membrane of the acrosome to often to release hyaluronidase and protease enzyme. And then These enzymes will now digest and open up the egg's outer layer, the sperm cells to enter and release its nucleus for fertilization. So then the next thing after the acrosome reaction is the membrane depolarization. So generally, sodium channels open in the egg's plasma membrane. So it's actually happened after the sperm cell binds to the membrane of the egg. And then as a result of that, it will now trigger the sodium channels to open. And after it opens, it will now allow sodium ion to enter. So what happened? The influx of this sodium ion, it will now depolarize the egg membrane. And after this depolarization, it will cause the rapid electrical change. So as a result of that, this depolarization will now create a fast block to polyspermy, preventing multiple sperm from fertilization. That is the egg. So you see, once this sodium ions depolarize the membrane, so it will block the polyspermy. That is, it will prevent the other sperm from entering into the egg cell in order to prevent a multiple fertilization. So that is why only one sperm cell or two sperm cells can get themselves into the egg cell. So if it is one, there's a likelihood that you are going to have a one child. If it is two, it may be possible you can have a twins, either identical or fraternal twins. So this is what happened. As you can see, before fertilization, the negative resting potential, and then of course, after the sodium enter, there will be depolarization. That is the influx of sodium. So there will be depolarization, and that will cause the blockage of the egg membrane. Therefore, there will be no more sperm cell that will enter. So this is what happens during polarization, before and after fertilization. So then the next thing is calcium channel activation. So depolarization, it opens voltage sensitive calcium channels in the egg endoplasmic reticulum. So what happened? The influx of calcium into the membrane triggers the various downstream event, which is essential for fertilization. So you see, after the depolarization, the depolarization of the egg membrane with sodium ion, it will now open the voltage sensitive calcium channel in the X endoplasmic reticulum, because egg is a cell and it has different organelles like endoplasmic reticulum. So as a result of that depolarization, the endoplasmic reticulum will now open the voltage sensitive calcium channel. And as a result of that, there will be an influx of calcium ion, which will trigger a various downstream event, which is essential for the fertilization. So therefore, the elevated level calciums will now activate the process that facilitates sperm fertilization and egg activation. So see, ladies and gentlemen, you need to understand that this element, sodium ion, causes depolarization, and then the depolarization triggers the endoplasmic reticulum to activate voltage-sensitive calcium channel. And as a result of that, there will be an influx of calcium, which will trigger the various downstream event, which is essential for. So the elevated calcium in the cell will now activate the process, and that process will activate sperm penetration and egg activation. So now, digestion and cytoskeletal changes. The digestive enzymes from the acrosome vesicle That is, the hyaluronides and proteases will digest the jelly coat and vitelline membrane, and this will increase intracellular pH. So that increase in intracellular pH will now caused by sodium hydrogen ratio exchanges, which promote actin polymerization. So actin microfilament extend toward the egg plasma membrane, aiding sperm penetration. So this is actually what happened, ladies and gentlemen. Look at it. This is the actin polymerization. So you have a lot of actin which polymerize itself. So this actin microfilament toward the egg membrane, it will now aid, as you can see, the sperm penetration. So as you can see clearly now, the sperm is penetrating. I hope you have followed. So now, the next thing is the fusion of sperm and the egg membrane, how the sperm cell and egg membrane fuse. So the acrosome first fuses with the egg plasma membrane, granting sperm access to the cytoplasm. So there is a water influx. Water influx due to calcium elevation increases hydrostatic pressure, extending the acrosomal process. So as we can see, of course, after depolarization, calcium levels will go high, and that will actually activate water influx. So this water influx will now cause an increase in hydrostatic pressure. And this hydrostatic pressure is very important in extending the acrosomal process. So that is what you call a binding protein cord, the acrosomal, the binding protein cord. That is the acrosomal process, and this is assisting in sperm egg recognition and attachment. So that is what you call a binding protein, a binding protein cord on the egg, and there is also an acrosomal proteins as a receptor. So this actually assists in sperm and egg fertilization, because when sperm is released, the egg is there in the uterus, so there must be a form of cellular recognition. How the sperm cell and egg cell will recognize themselves and then attach is through this binding proteins cord. They are called binding protein cord. So this is what happens. So this is membrane fusion, and we have the zona pellucida, and we have the egg of sperm cell entering the egg. So then the next thing is cortical reaction and block to polyspermy. So a wave of calcium causes cortical vesicle friction with the egg membrane, releasing their contents. So this reaction rises a vitelline membrane and inactivates sperm binder. So the cortical reaction establishes the physical and chemical block for additional sperm entry. So you see, a cortical reaction is a type of reaction that trying to actually causes the vesicle or the vesicle of the egg membrane to fuse. And this will now inactivate sperm binding sites. Therefore, there will be no more sperm entry. So a cortical reaction is very important in blocking polyspermy, that is preventing the multiple entry of sperm. And then look at it here. This is the cortical granule, and this is low block to polyspermy, and this is the plasma membrane. So they will fuse themselves, and then there will be block of polyspermy. So that is the importance of cortical reaction, and this cortical reaction is caused as a result of web of calcium. So in summary, acrosomal reaction ensures species-specific sperm entry and prevent polyspermy. and multiple. That is why it's only when there is an intercourse between human and human, that is when there will be fertilization. So multiple coordinated steps, including enzymes release and membrane changes, facilitate fertilization. So understanding this process is key to comprehending early reproductive biology in animals. So ladies and gentlemen, this is where I'm going to stop. If this is the first time you come to my YouTube, please subscribe and join my YouTube membership. Thank you very much and see you next in my next video. Bye bye.